Welcome to the God Pod. So we're gonna start off today with the Ethiopian Bible. This is I gave away my other one that I had all my notes in. This is a new one. So this book has a handful of books that aren't in the King James version, or what the King James version is based off of, like the Septuagint, which we discussed a little bit last time. But the Septuagint was made in, it was the Septuagint was commissioned in the 2nd century BC by Ptolemy II under his reign. And they, the story goes, the 70 rabbis all came up with the Septuagint, essentially, to make a long story short. But at the same time, we're going to talk about the untold history. So the untold history is that the Essenes, which is they call a sect of Judaism, but really in actuality they were the way, right? So they go all the way back to the Ethiopian Bible, right? And the reason I say this is because the Book of Enoch, okay, which we'll discuss today a little bit, but the Book of Enoch gives, the luminaries, the calendars. It has, there's parables, and it also gives a whole bunch of other stories about fallen angels and everything else that is actually all true. So the Book of Enoch is what the Essenes follow. Like, that's the oldest. Like, he was the first to walk with God, right? Other than Adam. And like, he was the first book. It's the first book of the Bible, really. He was 7th from Adam, great grandfather of Noah, right? And he was the first to walk with God, and he was the first technical rapture, if you want to call it. He lived 365 years, and then he was taken. But there's a lot. We have a lot to discuss about Enoch, because he's in a handful of books. He's also in Genesis. He's in the Bible that we all have, the King James version, or the NIV, whatever you want to call it, the modern Bible that we have today. So, I have a book here, even Josephus, right? Josephus. So this isn't even he's a historian. He was a 1st century historian, and he even discusses the he doesn't, I don't know if he says them by name. I'll have to look it up again, but he does mention the Essenes, as a sect of Judaism back then. So the reason they called them a sect of Judaism is because they obviously followed the Bible, right, to strict standards, which is obviously what Jesus did, right? Which is why he calls himself the truth, the way, and the life, right? So the Essenes were the way. They followed the way, which is from the Ethiopian Bible. Enoch was the first to walk with God, which was following the way. So everyone that followed God follows the true way, right? So like when in Noah's time, when the earth was flooded, like we were down to 8 people that believed fully in God, the remnant. So how many people do we think there are today that follow the true way? The true way. Like prayer, walking with God. Literally, like, that's all I do all day is think about God. You got to think about God all day. Because that's what walking with God is. He's part of your life, right? Literally part of your life. Because if he's not, then who's part of your life? You either work for God or you work for the devil. So, I'm sure we're all born of the flesh, so we all are of the devil at one point in our life. But just like in the Bible, it says we're supposed to be reborn of the Spirit. So the flesh is of the flesh, and the Spirit is of the Spirit. So we'll go over a little bit of Enoch today, just going over like the way and the Essenes and like what they followed, like the book of the luminaries, right? So they follow the true 364 day a year calendar, right? Every year is the same. And then they talk about every 5 to 6 years, there's a leap week. We're on 365-day Gregorian calendar, which in turn has a leap year every 4 years, right? To keep the numbers going correctly with the seasons. But Enoch's calendar, God's calendar, which he instructed Enoch with, was 364 days, and that gives an even 91 days per season, right? And like you said, every 5 to 6 years we got a leap week. And then every 7th year, this is like growing crops. So this is why we also have crop shortages, and why we have, all of our food is bad today. Like, they don't adhere to these laws. Like, these are the laws, like the book of Moses, right? The 5 books of Moses. Those are the laws. Like, the laws are written in there. So like, just like I said, for gravity, you got a ball, what goes up must come down, right? It's the same concept. So if you don't follow God's law, like, it won't work. He put the laws in place before we were ever there. So like, we can't break them. If we break them, like, then, that's when the opposite reaction happens, right? That's what science talks about. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? It's the same. That's where they get it from, the law. So every 7 years, you're supposed to let the soil rest, and you're supposed to have harvested the year prior extra, right? God will provide, as he always does. But we don't do that anymore. We don't do any of those things. Like, we just consume, and that's kind of where we're at where we're at. So, Enoch, this is a lot. There's a lot in Enoch. He was the first, like, he basically prophesized the days of Noah, his great grandson, right? And that's when we're getting into the weeds there, because like, there's more to the story in a lot of a few of the other books, like the Book of Jasher, like, talks a little bit more about that. And Jasher is confirmed because it's also in, like, they confirm it in Joshua, they confirm it in I have to go look, they confirm Timothy, I believe. Yeah, they refer to the Book of Jasher in those confirmed books of the Bible. So if you're reading a book that's confirmed in the Bible, right, and they refer to another book, that book must be also confirmed. That's just the way it is. Like, you can't refer to something that is untrue and you speak the truth as well. That doesn't make any sense, right? So if you refer to it, just like Genesis refers to Enoch, right? So that means Enoch is true, and they kept it out of the Bible for a reason. And I was saying that's why the Essenes, that were a sect of, they call them a sect of Judaism, but like I said, they were really followers of the way, because Jesus Christ himself never said he was, he came back to destroy religion. Basically, he said religion is man-made, which it is. So he follows the way. That's all it is. You're just following God. You're walking with God. There's no name to it. He calls us Christ, and if we all be Christ, then we are from Abraham's seed. Galatians 3:28, 3:29. There's neither male nor female, nor Jew, no Gentile. Whatever the translation, there's a many, Jew or Greek, there's a handful of translations. That's the problem with translations. So that's why you got to get a handful of Bibles, different Bibles, and you got to read them. You got to read them to discern them for yourself with the Spirit. You got to have the Spirit. So the Spirit is otherwise you're just reading it as the flesh, right? Because if you're reading it of the Spirit, then the Spirit guides you through and helps you discern it, right? But if you're reading as the flesh, you're just reading a story. That's all it is. And that's what I read too before, when I was just like we all are. We're all born of the flesh, Jesus Christ was the only one, the Son of God, was the only one that resisted temptation his entire life, right? But like I said in the previous episode, he was in a scene. So that was where he went during those years from 12 to 30 before he started his ministry. So it was 18 years he was learning, not learning, he already knew everything, obviously, but he was teaching his fellow Essenes, right? And he was, pretty much figuring out how to teach these teachings to everyone, because what do they say in Hosea 4:6? He says, my people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge, and then we go other proverbs of, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of that knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And we all do that. We all are our own gods. So, like, I'll give an example. I gave this example to a friend where, it's money, because money really is the root of all evils. It is the thing that Satan uses as the tool to control everybody in the world, pretty much, because you need money for everything. You need money to live, right? We don't believe that God will provide for us anymore like we used to. Now we believe that you need money to survive. So in the Bible, it talks about, God and mammon. You can't worship both things, right? So if you believe in God, that means you really believe that your money is not yours and your money is God's. So you should be spending it freely. You should be spending it more frugally on others, right? Just like Jesus Christ said to do. Like he said, treat others as you would yourself. So if you're buying yourself a cheeseburger, buy somebody else a cheeseburger. If you're buying yourself, I don't know, name it, a book, buy a book for your friend. If you're buying, if you go to the movies, take somebody. If you see a homeless person, literally that's your brother or sister. So feed them, do the right thing. And don't do these things just like it says in the Bible. Don't do these things for others. Don't do these things for your Father in heaven, because he stores your treasures in heaven for you. You can't take anything with you. That's a Frank Capra movie. I think it's Frank Capra. Jimmy Stewart's in it. But, you can't take anything with you. So what's the point of getting the big house, save, having whatever, millions of dollars in the bank? Like, what's the point if you're just going to die of the flesh anyway? Like, all that stuff is. So again, giving is better than receiving. He says it all the time. So if that's the case, like, I can tell you it is. Like, giving feels better than getting something. It feels good to give to others. It's built into us to do that. Like, he built those things in as a dopamine rush to you, right? These are natural, good dopamine rushes, not like the vices that we have, like alcohol, drugs, whatever, lust, all those things. Like, those are not good vices. That's what it says in the Bible. And it's true, because all of those things always lead to bad. They all lead to bad, always. And our false idols lead us down those paths. So you have, the entertainment industry, you have music, you have all of these, the news, everything, right? All of the stimulation, like what we're doing right now, right? All of that stuff are influencing you. All of it's influencing you. And it's all influencing you mostly negatively at this point, because when everything starts for God, it eventually ends up to devil, because again, this world belongs to Satan. He talks about it in the Bible. He says this world is, again, Jesus says, we are not of this world. When you're become of the Spirit, you're not of this world. You realize that. You look at everything and you realize, oh my goodness, like, it's exactly like John Carpenter's They Live. It's like you put on the glasses and boom, you see everything. You see, oh my gosh, like, everything in the world is a distraction from God, because Satan, basically, his only goal is to steal children, to take away God's children. That's the only goal. That's the whole goal. And he does a really good job, because right now, I'd have to say 90+% of the world is spiritually dead. And that's because of those things. Like, they don't trust in God right now. They don't trust in God. Like, they don't trust in God enough to like provide their mortgage payment, their rent payment, right? Their car note, whatever it is. Like, they don't trust, they believe, they trust in man at this point, or themselves. Like, I need to make that money. I got to make this, I got to do this. I got it. I got it. They don't just sit and pray on it. There's been examples, so many examples in the past of all these things, but we have been completely brainwashed for the last few generations. And that's all it takes, right? These books tell the truth. These books say exactly why and what happens over time when you lose God. These books confirm the Bible. Like these other books, like Philo Josephus, I have in front of me. Every episode I'll take out a new book and we'll discuss a little bit of it and how it pertains to the real world and life at this point. Because again, there's a reason why they don't teach you these things in school, because school is all about programming, right? It's all about funneling you into a job so that you become mentally enslaved by that job, because you need money to survive. So you're not working for God anymore. You're working for the devil. So there's, like I said, there's only two. You only work for two people in this world. You either work for God or you work for the devil. If you work for yourself, you work for the devil. If you work for anybody but God, you work for it, or you work for the devil. So hopefully the person you work for works for God, and then in turn you do too. So like, obviously, if you work for a church, like, depending on the church, right? Because most churches have false teachers, false prophets. Again, Revelations, this is it right now, guys. This is it. People don't know. The rapture isn't what people think. Anyway, so Enoch, here, I'll read a passage right here. Enoch 15:9. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. As for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for the spirits of the earth, which were born upon the earth, on the earth shall be their dwelling. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against women, because they have proceeded from them. There you go. So this talks about the fallen angels, and again, Genesis talks about, has the one line about it, and talks about how the daughters of men, the angels came upon them. Like, basically the angels, fornicated with the daughters of men, and they begat giants, right? And these giants were mighty men, the mighty men of renown, which is what they have been translated into a handful of times in the other Bible and, the modern Bible. And again, these are just all mistranslations, coming from the original original Hebrew, or the original Greek or Aramaic, depending on what book you're reading. The translations always lose something in the translation on purpose. They do it on purpose. That is exactly why they say in the Bible that you gotta be of the Spirit to discern it, because the Spirit will help guide you through and tell you what is false and what is not, and what needs to be looked at more in depth, right? Because again, a lot false prophets. It's just simple as that. False prophets. All of these religions, they're all false. Like, there should be no middleman between you and God, right? If you have the Holy Spirit, like, just like Jesus Christ said, like he let his, the Spirit is on the earth, right? It's in everybody, right? We breathe it in when we're born. We breathe in our spirit. So if everybody has a spirit and everybody can contact God and the body is our temple, right? And we are Israel when we are reborn of the Spirit, right? So why is there a middleman between you and God? There shouldn't. There shouldn't be. So if there's a middleman between you and God, you discern for yourself. All I know is that when I grew up, I saw so much hypocrisy in the church and among adults, right? That, called themselves godly or whatever you want to say. If they take you to church, if you go to church and you see these people and then you see them and then they're sinning on a daily basis, as a child, you understand the hypocrisy in it and you don't believe it anymore, which is why so many people fell out of the church, because they're all, they're false teachers. They are. Jesus spoke out in the open for a reason. God's word is for everybody. It's not, if you're in closed doors, that's, you're hiding. You're hiding, right? But right now we're on the internet, right? So this is for everybody. Think about that. Think about that when you read Revelation. For all eyes to see. For all eyes to see. So anyway. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's always so much to talk about when it comes to this. Like, I have so many notes. And the reason why we talk about kids like that, especially why, when I say that as a kid, I saw the hypocrisy in the church, especially with Catholicism. When you see that, guess what? What did Jesus say? Come to me as a child. Come to me, as children, because we're supposed to be children to God, right? So the children see through it. So the children actually are the teachers to a lot of the adults. So like if the adults today are still led by the flesh and not the spirit, like, you can learn more from your kids than you can from anyone else, because at this point your hearts are hardened. You know everything, right? You know everything. I know I did at one point. I thought I knew everything. And it wasn't until I admitted that I knew nothing that I knew something. Because that, like I said earlier, is the beginning of knowledge. I feared the Lord, right? I seeked. Because he says if you look for it, I'll give you the answers if you really look. I really looked. And there was a point where it was just like, there's just good and evil in the world. It's really simple. There's no gray. Because the problem with the gray is you live in the gray, and it's really easy to go to the dark. Right? But we have to be the light. That's what Jesus said. You are the light of the world. He is the light of the world. Right? Because the whole point of heaven and the whole point of this is that everybody needs to get and be as close to Christ as they can. That's the point. Then you make heaven on earth. Because if you live by the commandments, life will be good. Life will be good for everybody. And God will be happy, and God will literally provide. He loves a happy giver. He loves a happy giver. I can attest to that. So, Enoch. All right, let's go through a little bit more Enoch. Let's go. And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said to one another, the earth made without inhabitant cries the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make their suit, saying, bring our case before the Most High. And they said to the Lord of ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and the God of the ages, the throne of thy glory, unto all the generations of the ages, and thy name holy and glorious and blessed upon unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou, and all things are naked and open in thy sight. and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide from itself from thee. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And Semyaza, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates, and they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with the blood and of unrighteousness. And now, behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their lamentations have ascended, and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on earth. Man. And thou dost know all things before they come to pass, and thou seest the things, and thou dost suffer them, and thou dost not say to us what we are to do to them in regard to these. All right, that was Enoch 9. I just read the whole thing, because it's very important. It talks about how Azazel literally taught unrighteousness to everybody, right? Because he was jealous. He was the first angel, right? And this is something to be taught to our children when we, play favorites. We can't play favorites. That's literally what happened, right? So, I'm not going to read that part. I don't know where it's at in here, but he talks about when, Azazel was jealous, like literally, like when God made Adam, right? He's like, he made him in his image, and then we're supposed to go worship this guy, basically is what he's saying. And, they're like, yeah, we that's what we do. That's what we're angels, right? And Azazel was like, we're not having it. Basically, he's like, he was upset. He was the first angel. He thought he was supposed to be the most glorified one, I guess you can say. But angels were made for a specific reason, and we'll get into that more later. This is already, I don't know how long I ran here. But yeah, we can, I'll just read a little bit from this one too. Something from Kings, because it's interesting. I was reading before, because it talks about how, this really makes sense, again, how nepotism works, right? So when King Hezekiah had survived the interval of time already mentioned, and had dwelt all that time in peace, he died, right? Having completed 54 years of his life, and he reigned 29. But when his son, Manasseh of Jerusalem, had taken the kingdom, he departed from the conduct of his father, and fell into a course of life quite contrary thereto, and showed himself in his manners most wicked in all respects, and omitted no sort of impiety, but imitated those transgressions of the Israelites, by the commission of which against God they had been destroyed, for which he was so hardy as to defile the temple of God and the city and the whole country. For by setting out for a contempt of God, he barbarously slew all righteous men that were among the Hebrews, nor would he spare the prophets. He went against God, sinning like crazy, killing all the righteous men. They're all telling him like not to do what he's doing. And they're all like, God's going to be angry. So he said, so God was angry at these proceedings, and sent prophets to the king and to the multitude, by whom he threatened the very same calamities to which their brethren the Israelites, upon like affronts offered to God, were now under, right? So basically, God was like not happy, so he sent a couple kings. The king from Babylon, they had him under his own power to inflict what punishment he had pleased upon him, basically. So what happened was that, long story short, is that he repented, right? He repented, and he prayed to God, like, please let them have mercy on me, essentially. And what happened was that they did have mercy on him. God granted him his wish, essentially, right? His prayers were answered, and in doing so, he gave his life to God, and he changed his ways. He repented. He built temples. He rebuilt a lot of the things in the city. He strengthened, fortified the gates of Jerusalem, all these things, all these good things, right? And then God let him live longer, and he ruled, and then he died. But again, just like I said before, just like we were talking here about, you can't treat your kids one better than the other. You just can't. It creates these things in them where they have pride, right? And then it creates the jealousy too. And then it starts in the house, right? They mirror us. Kids mirror us, right? And so again, what happened is that his son, his son did the same thing. Although his son Ammon, he only lived 24 years, and he only reigned 2, right? Because by the time it gets to the grandson, the people had enough. They're like, your dad was horrible for a while before he repented. You're not going to do the same thing. So again, what did God do? God punished him, or, God let him be punished because God is only good, right? So God doesn't do these things to people, right? The thing is that because of the law, when you break the law, it happens. He said it. He's like, these are the laws to make everything perfect, essentially. And when you break them, it makes everything imperfect. I can't do anything. I'm telling you not to do these things. I gave you the books. I gave you the knowledge. If you follow my instruction, life will be perfect, and there will be heaven. But if you don't, then there will literally be hell to pay. So then his son, who was 8 years old, Josiah, he became the king, right? And he was most excellent, and he was virtuous, and he followed King David, right? So look what happened there. That's 4 generations, right? So you had the first generation, due to the king was righteous, right? And this is all verified in the Bible. This is Josephus. This is a historian. This isn't the Bible, right? He's a first century historian. So, and this is the Antiquities of the Jews, chapter 4, chapter 3 and 4. Okay. So essentially, yeah, he was righteous. So you have one generation, and then the wicked the next, right? And then the next one was going to be wicked, and then they cut that off. And then the 4th one, they go back to righteousness. So where do you think we're at today, right? So we're probably 100 years removed from being more Christian and more Bible believing, God fearing people than we are today. We're very wicked today. This is Sodom and Gomorrah, guys. Like the world, we have war everywhere. I don't pay attention to any of it anymore, because when you live in the Word, you got to live in the Word. I only hear things now from my friends and people I know. And, when I do, I look, I'll look into the news for a day, because that's all I can do, because it makes you just cry. It makes you literally just cry when you see the horrors of the world. Like, these are our brothers and sisters, literally. These are God's children, every single one of them. There's no right, there's no left. There's nothing. We are all spirits. We are of the Spirit. So if anybody is taking any side other than God's, anybody's other than Jesus Christ himself, the living God, if anyone's taking any other side, including themselves, then you are on the wrong side. You are on the wrong side. And all it's doing is creating more negativity and more evil in the world, because that spreads. That spreads. That's the real virus. The real virus is the demons in your head. That's the real virus, right? And we cover them up with all kinds of sin, whether it be, like I said, food, drugs, rock and roll, whatever it is, we cover it up. Because you need that dopamine rush of whatever your sin is, right? But guess what? Like I said, God gives you that dopamine rush when you're doing the right thing. Like, go out and go help somebody. Go give something to somebody. Trust me, it's the same thing as whatever it is your sin is. You'll get the same feeling, but better. You'll get this because it's lasting. And what it does is it fills your cup. And then it makes you want to do things more righteous. And then you become more righteous and more righteous and more righteous, right? Because good is also viral. It's actually more viral than the negative. But they want you to believe that the world is negative. So who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe Jesus, or are you going to believe the world, right? We know he's real. We're still talking about him 2,000 years later. To this day, he's more popular than anybody else ever will be, right? We forget about every idol. Guess what? That's how you know he's God, guys. That's how you know he's God. because everybody else you forget about over time, right? I can name you a bunch of stars that Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're not going to know. Maybe millennials might know, Gen X probably know, right? And then boomers, and then whatever's left, if silent generation, I don't know, the greatest generation, if there's anybody left from those generations at this point, um, they know the stars of old. They might, oh yeah, I remember, you know, the Marlon Brandos or whatever. You can go back the Montgomery Cliffs, right? The Jimmy Stewarts, right? I remember them. But go ask somebody that's under 30 those names. They don't know who they are, right? Or anybody famous for that matter. Go tell them again. This guy, I'm sure, was Josephus. I'm sure was pretty famous in his time. I'll tell you that much. Like, look how big this book is. Like, they didn't have TV, guys. They didn't have TV. They didn't have the internet. So they read. So I'm sure he was pretty famous, but you guys don't know him. I'm sure. Please, in the comments, whatever, please tell me who knew this book, who's actually read some of this book. We are a species that literally has forgot God. And we wonder why. All you have to do is go read any story in the Bible about what happens when we disobey God. He can't help us. He does not dwell in unclean spirit, in unclean vessels, right? Because he's a spirit. Spirits do not dwell in unclean vessels. Only demons do. Because there's only demons and there's only, good spirits. That's it. That's all that's around you, right? It's the unseen. It's the air. They're in the air, right? You don't see the air. I don't know. Like, it's funny because, like I said, there's like people don't realize that magic box in front of you is literally throwing, invisible images to your screens, but you can't believe that there's demons literally in your own thoughts and that they're not your own and that you aren't making your own decisions because you've been indoctrinated from the start. Like, this is the Matrix, guys. Like, you live in the Matrix. All right. This has been the God Pod. Like, we're going to teach more the way. We're going to keep this more positive. We needed to talk about, all of these things so that people understand what's going on, because I know a lot of people don't know. Like, a lot of people are going to Jesus right now. They're having these revelations, right, about Jesus Christ and like him being Lord, but they don't know what to do. Like, people are going to church. Like, I see more people in church. Like, I go to different churches and I see different people and they don't know what they're doing. And I feel bad for our brothers and sisters because they don't know where to begin, and they're going to be led by false prophets because people are going to teach them the wrong ways. And there's only one way. That's why Jesus said, follow me. There's only one way to the Father. It's through me. Like, you literally have to do what I do. That's what he meant. Like, follow me. Take up your cross and follow me. That's what I do. I pray. So behind the camera, I have an altar in my house. I have this, there. I got holy water. I have my anointing olive oil, because that's what he says. This holy things. Like, think about it. Read the Bible. Think about what they do. Like, think about what they did. Ask questions to the Spirit. Ask it to discern it for you, right? And I pray every morning, noon, and night on that at that altar, at least those 3 times. That's the very least, right? I'm praying all day though, right? Just like Jesus said, when he's tempted by Satan, we're always tempted by Satan all day. So what did he say? It is written, right? He resisted the temptation, right? That's the Lord's Prayer. Lead me not into temptation, right? But unfortunately, we live in Satan's world, and we live in the worst time right now. So everything's a temptation to people. And the problem is that I know so many people are struggling. We literally have so much terror going on in the world. Like, we need to make a positive. So this is going to be the history portion of the podcast. Like, we're going to talk about this history stuff because I know a lot of it is like, it can be scary to some because the beginning of the knowledge, is very fearful, because when you realize like you've been living the wrong way for a long time, it's very scary. And you realize, oh my goodness, like everybody I know is living the wrong way too. Like, oh my goodness, like what's going to happen, right? It's okay. It really is okay. It's going to be all right. It's going to be okay, because the first step is admitting that you know nothing essentially, right? And so then you can start to know something, right? So start reading. How I recommend reading the Bible, if you've never really read it, because so many people have it and they're like, where do I even? I started Genesis and you just read through the whole thing. I start the New Testament. I don't know where to read. To ask it some questions. Get into a meditative state, a prayer state, right? Pray. Clear your mind. No distractions. Nothing around you. No loud sound. Just as quiet as you can get. And after you've been in this prayer meditative state for 20 or so minutes, ask some questions out loud. You should be alone for this, obviously. Ask some questions out loud that you need answers, and then open up your Bible anywhere, wherever the Spirit takes you, literally. And then wherever your eyes on the page take you, and read. Just start reading, and you don't have to really think about it. Just read it. Like, don't think about it. It's subconscious. It has to be subconscious. And as you read, you will probably start to understand it. Mm-hmm. No, you will start to understand it. You will. The more you do this, the more you will understand. The more you do this, the more you will understand. Because again, right now, so many people just are looking for answers. And Jesus Christ is the truth, the way, and the life. He's the way to eternal life. He's the way to the Father. He's the way to the Father. He's the way to our Father. And you need to start living now as if this is heaven. That's the trick. The trick is to live as Spirit now, so that way we're already ready for heaven, right? So make your heaven now. Go watch It's a Wonderful Life. Realize that your life is actually good, okay? Because when you start living with the Spirit, you're going to see all of the good in your life instead of the bad. Because when you live in the negative cycle of life, of the media, of scrolling, doom scrolling, whatever it is, right? Work, you have everyone complaining to you all day. You go home and then you guys complain to each other. Or whatever, you might have a happy life, or so you think. I think that's the problem, is like a lot of us think we have a happy life. But those are smoke and mirrors, because think about the future. Think about, the end of it. Think about then. Are you going to be afraid? Are you going to be afraid? Are you going to be ready to go back home? Because like all this is preparation for the next. So, all right, guys, this has been the God Pod. Yeah, like I said, we're going to do some more upbeat stuff and talk about the way. Literally talk about the way. So praying every day, okay? Taking the Sabbath seriously, working for others, right? This is what you do for a good, clean, righteous life, because you start to build your village around you, and then everybody you start to see the fruits, right? That's what we talk about, like the fruits. We will be known by our fruits, because bad trees bear bad fruit and good trees bear good fruit. So he knows us by our works, by those works, right? He knows us by those works because those are for him. So if we do those things for him, then at the end, when he talks, when we're judged, he says, I definitely knew you. You were working for me. Of course, you're going to know your boss. Like, you're going to know the people that work for you. That's kind of how it works. So anyway, hope you guys got that, because again, it's a good thing. Like, this is all good. This is all good. We're going to make heaven on earth, guys. I'll teach you the way. We'll show you the way, because it's I have a lot of interesting books. A lot of interesting books about the Essenes. Actually, you know what? Real quick, we'll do. This is what do you call it? Encore. We'll do a 5-minute encore with one book, which is interesting. Okay. This book is called From Enoch to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay. So this book's falling apart. It's old. They don't have a lot of copies. I gave away one of my other copies of this, but I'll read you just the intro. The Essenes and their teaching. From the remote ages of antiquity, a remarkable teaching has existed, which is universal in its application and ageless in its wisdom. Fragments of it are found in Sumerian hieroglyphs and on tiles and stones dating back some 8 or 10,000 years. Some of the symbols, such as for the moon, sun, air, water, and other natural forces, are from an even earlier age preceding the cataclysm that ended the Pleistocene period. How many thousands of years previous to that the teachings existed is unknown. To study and practice this teaching is to reawaken within the heart of every man an intuitive knowledge that can solve his individual problems and the problems of the world. Traces of the teachings have appeared in almost every country and religion. Its fundamental principles were taught in ancient Persia, Egypt, India, Tibet, China, Palestine, Greece, and many other countries, but it has been transmitted in its most pure form by the Essenes. That mysterious brotherhood which lived during the last 2 or 3 centuries BC and the first century of the Christian era at the Dead Sea in Palestine, and at Lake Mareotis in Egypt. In Palestine and Syria, the members of the brotherhood were known as Essenes, and in Egypt as Therapeutai, or healers. All right. The esoteric part of their teaching is given in the Tree of Life, the Communions, and the Sevenfold Peace. The exoteric or outer teachings appear in the Essene Gospel of John, Genesis and Essene interpretation, Moses, the prophet of law, and the Sermon on the Mount. The origin of the brotherhood is said to be unknown, and the derivations of the name is uncertain. Some believe it comes from Enoch, Esnosh or Enoch, and claim him to be, he wrote this differently here, and claim to be their founder, their communion with the angelic world having first been given to him. All right. So we'll get into more of this later, but as you could tell, they followed that's what I'm saying. So the Essenes follow Enoch, right? This dates all the way back to Enoch because Enoch was the first Essene. He followed the way, he followed God. So yeah, that's the end of this one. So we'll read more of this next week. Thank you guys.